Now I will do a roll call. Phil,
Yes.
Marianne,
Yes.
Carl,
Present.
Bonnie,
Yes.
and I am Rebecca, and I am here. Steve is not going to be here this evening. We also have Juliet and Brian from the town with us. Let's just, I guess we'll just start by acknowledging the passing of Chris Buckley today. Pretty sad news. And very thankful and grateful for the work that Chris has done as a member of the planning board, all that he's done to serve the board and the town. And I welcome anyone else to say anything right now as well.
Well, it was really
Well, all I can say is, oops, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Bonnie.
I'm just very sorry to hear the news. When did he pass away?
This morning.
Oh, God. What a nice guy. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to hear it.
Yeah, well, he would always come and strike up a conversation whenever he was biking by the house. Never seemed to be in a rush and always had a smile on his face. We need more people like him.
On anyone else? No pressure at all. On Monday, the select board will be presenting a plaque acknowledging that the the Clay Brook parcel, that conservation easement will be named in honor of Chris. I'll be saying a few words there. The board's welcome to join in on that as well. And if anybody else has other would like me to include anything specific, let me know either at this meeting or offline at a different time. I'd be happy to include those words. So, all right. Let's see. Next up, hang on one second. Sorry, the dog is panting heavily on me. The next up, the notice of regional impact at Cell Tower in Holderness. Brian?
Yes, it's the standard letter that you guys receive. I mean, I'll read it for you if you want, but basically, I looked up where it was and sent you the map excerpt.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the easterly facing slope of the valley formed by Little Squam. Again, this is a tower that we can't see from here and will do nothing for our cell phone service. But I think, again, the only reason we were notified is because of that, the wording in the RSAs about the 20-mile radius. So they've done their due diligence, and I'll leave it to you guys to tell me what to reply to.
Any comments on the cell tower?
Since it seems to have nothing to do with us, other than they're generously notifying us, I can't think of anything that we really ought to say.
No, it's my sense that we don't necessarily need to provide a reply at all. They're required to let us know, and that's a state statute, right? That, you know, when a cell tower goes up in any town within that 20-mile radius, needs to be notified. So, yeah.
I'll just let them know that we received it and that you folks have decided. Well, do we need a vote for you to take no action?
Let's take a vote to take no action.
Okay.
Would anyone like to make a motion to do nothing?
I'd like to make a motion that we don't need to take action on this particular case.
Lost them all. For crying out loud.
What?
You're still there, Brian.
You can still hear you though. Is there a second?
Why?
I'll second.
Okay.
I totally missed all of that, Madam Chair. May I have the motions and the vote, please?
Well, you didn't miss that much. Bonnie made the motion. Marianne, did you do the second?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And now I'm about to do the roll. Phil?
Thank you.
Yes.
Marianne,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
and me. I'm a yes as well. All right. So we've all agreed to do nothing.
That's the easiest vote we've taken.
Yep. Okay, so next up is a report from the zoning subcommittee. We met this afternoon and went through the summary and purpose statements for 3 different districts that we're looking at, which we had talked about as a board before. So the Tenny Mountain Highway District, we tentatively named it the Tenny Mountain Highway Mixed Use District, which I realize now we could shorten it to Tenny Mountain Highway MUD. But that was formerly the Industrial Commercial District, the Gateway District, which is what we're currently calling the Highway Commercial District, and part of the Ag Zone, and then the rest of the Ag Zone, which we're looking for a name for. So rural residential, open space residential is what we're thinking. So that was sent around not too long ago. So realizing that folks probably haven't had a chance to really dig into it. But a couple things that that we wanted to just get some input and some ideas. One was the name. We're pretty happy with the Gateway District name, with the Tenny Mountain Highway Multi-Use District. But it's the rural residential or the open space rural residential open space residential district. So recognizing that in the past we struggled with the use getting too tied up in the name. So we had an ag zone, which really, conveyed agriculture, was maybe not necessarily what was happening there. So making sure that our zones are broad enough to not be determining use, but also reflecting what actually is happening in the zone. So ideas now, they don't have to be today. We can take ideas at a different time, but just want to make sure you have a chance to look through those sheets, the names, and the purpose statements behind each district as well.
Okay, Madam Chair, you used the term open space.
Mm-hmm.
That's already taken. It's cluster development is now open space development.
Mm-hmm.
So unless we're intending to make it all that, I would shy away from that particular one.
If I can, I had suggested rural residential, and I think Steve's only concern about that is that it gets overused and is somewhat pigeonholed. But if it has widespread understanding amongst voters, it might be easier to go with something like rural residential, recognizing that there may be other uses other than residential, like agriculture and forestry. But I think the majority of New Hampshire residents would understand that rural uses are compatible with residences in most parts of town.
And I know that in the past you brought up the idea of incompatible uses
I like the concept of open space residential too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, certainly open space isn't precluded from there, and it would be actually more fitting. But I don't want people, like you were saying, Phil, to get the idea just from the name that that's what it's all about.
Right.
So, but somewhere.
Less concerned about that with the open
I'm
space
sorry.
residential development than I am with something like the word agriculture. Because I feel like that is a very specific thing, whereas open space, but I can see the confusion. This is why there just doesn't seem to be a great name for it. It is kind of a catch-all zone. But if folks can read through the sheet, and if there's any other suggestions, or if you want to look at other towns that are similar or dissimilar to us and see if there's other ideas that you see in other zones, that would be helpful too. So
Rebecca, is there a residential zone as well as what we're calling rural residential zone?
We've got the single family and the multifamily.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, all right. So looking a little further down at the uses table, I just wanted to introduce this a little bit. That we've started to look at what type of uses are permitted or requiring, or not permitted or requiring a conditional use permit. Which, Brian, do we have anything that requires a conditional use permit currently?
Just the ADU.
Okay. Phil, are you still able to maybe talk a little bit about conditional use permit? I'm happy to do it if you don't want to.
Sorry, I was on mute. I can give a crack at it, but
Okay.
So like a special exception, a conditional use permit typically has a list of criteria that need to be met, but the conditional use permit is approved by the planning board, not the zoning board. So if we were to, we could easily require either a conditional use or a special exception. The special exception does require posting another meeting for a ZBA hearing, whereas a conditional use permit can be included in either a site plan or a subdivision application, whichever may be appropriate that the planning board would be having at the same time. But things that we would need to put our brains together to come up with a list of criteria that we would want met to issue the conditional use permit for specific uses. So, one of the things we talked about is, along the Tenny Mountain Highway area, allowing first floor commercial with residential over, but allowing first floor residential with a conditional use permit where, something like the Soldier On home, where it's a devoted residential facility that's somewhat isolated. So, it would take a little criteria to come up with criteria to satisfy the conditional use permit, but by allowing it to go forward as a conditional use, it keeps the authority to approve in the hands of the planning board. And, obviously if anyone's ever aggrieved by our decision, they can always appeal. But that's my thought. Rebecca, if you want to add, I certainly won't be offended.
Yeah, the idea was just to keep the uses fairly general, but then when there are certain things that might be slightly more impactful, to be able to provide more guidance to applicants and how to best navigate our system and address concerns. So what we looked at kind of closely was industrial uses in both the Gateway District and the Tenny Mountain Highway multi-use district. Sorry, Carl, I see a cattail going by. And thinking about, okay, so we can't possibly think about all the different types of industrial uses that might happen. But we could certainly think of the impacts that that type of use might have on the surrounding area. And requiring a conditional use permit allows us to maybe make sure that use isn't being impactful to the town, to adjacent property owners, things like that. So, all while keeping in mind what type of administrative burden this will put on the board and on the town staff as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, if it was easy enough to just shift some of what I like the idea of the special exception being the example here, because a lot of that can be moved out to the planning board. I mean, it seemed like the electorate fully embraced the ADU conditional permit without the zoning board influence on it. And also with the master sign easement that we have out, on the commercial properties. And you're right. I mean, we just have to be careful that we're pretty clear in what is and what isn't. Again, I mean, if we're splitting it out this way, this is a golden opportunity for us to get it right rather than have some loosey-goose interpretation. I mean, that's the main problem that I have here is there's way too much interpretation and not enough. It's on page 6. So, the clearer we can get on that, I think it's going to make it easier for everybody, all the boards and the applicants as well.
Do we work with the zoning board to come up with this conditional use criteria? Or does somebody
No,
review it?
We'll work on the criteria for the conditional use.
Right, but do they approve it or look at it just to make sure? Interesting.
No.
Okay.
They're free to come to the public hearings as citizens, or
Okay.
sometimes they'll see a trend that they might kick back to the planning board, but they are quasi-judicial only. They're not a rule-making board.
Okay.
They pretty much examine the rules that we've made and allow for exceptions instead of us allowing for exceptions to the rules that we're in charge of
Okay.
hearing applicants. So, yeah. All right. So I would suggest everyone just go through these district sheets. There's a sheet and maybe provide some feedback by our next meeting. I think there's some further information on conditional use permits, which I will circulate to the board.
Okay.
And that will just give you a better idea of how they're used. These are, I think the ones I'm thinking of are coming from state documents. So, any questions or comments from the board at this point?
Nope.
That's kind of all I have as far as master plan implementation goes, was just a report back from the zoning subcommittee. I will say that the committee has been really helpful to have just 3 people kind of going through this on a weekly basis instead of waiting 2 to 4 weeks to go through stuff. So stuff stays fresh, and seems like we're moving forward quickly, which is great. So.
Okay.
Anything else?
Thanks for your leadership heading that up, Rebecca. It's been
Really good. Steve's been doing a lot of the work too. Oh, the other thing is I did get shape files for our zoning districts from the tax map people, Access GIS. So we're actually going to pull up our maps and see where the gateway district will go, and we're going to play with it that way. So
good.
Yeah.
Sweet.
All
And
right.
I just say thank you for all the work you're doing. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Bonnie, for continuing to be a part of this. So.
Oh, this is embarrassing. Knock it off.
Group virtual hug.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Would you like the preview of coming attractions, Madam Chair?
Sure.
We have 2 cases for the 14th. One is the spokesperson for administrative site plan review. It's a second deck at the Lucky Dog that has the same footprint as the lower deck in the back on Depot Street. And the other is our friend, Mr. Carter, out on Tenny Mountain Highway with his camping mini golf.
Yep. All right.
And that's it. Just the 2.
Okay. Great. A couple things. I feel like I'm not keeping up with planning board paperwork very well now that we've gone digital, and I'm wondering, and I'm happy to take this conversation offline with Jules and Brian to figure out a way to get stuff to everybody. You know, I just can't find anything. We're going to end up having 3 minutes review, set the minutes to review at the next meeting. So I have a few ideas.
And a lot of that is on me.
Maybe I'm happy to help.
Oh, please.
You know, I might procrastinate a lot of stuff, but I'm really good at keeping a schedule. So I'm happy to take, some of the document distribution and put it out in a timely way if that's helpful. So maybe Brian, you and I can talk about that in a date to be determined.
Okay.
Yeah. Part of it is, I can't find. I'm just having trouble dealing with my own email volume to be able to figure out where the heck the minutes went from several meetings
Yeah.
ago. And stuff like that, so.
If I may offer this for the board to think about, after our next meeting is after the end of the governor's stay-at-home orders. Would you like, after, say we finish out the month of June with our Zooms, at that point, we can start having the board sitting in and doing the regular meeting with just the audience being to Zoom in, if that would work for you. Just something to think about is all. I mean, if you feel safe being in the same room, we could certainly spread out and mask. But I don't know if you've noticed how frustrated I am by this whole process. And I just found out that about every 5 minutes, my phone decides to mute everything on. So I'm just putting it out there. You guys, search your souls and let me know, and we can bring it up at the next meeting. I wasn't planning to do it on the 14th, as far as opening up, but we can have the discussion then if you'd like.
Any initial?
Could I say something?
Go ahead, Bonnie.
The sooner the better for me, because this is really hard for me to follow everything. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So if the stay-at-home order is lifted, do we actually have the option to Zoom? Is that?
Yeah, because it was never an order in the first place.
Okay.
It's more of a guideline. And that's where they're running into problems with people pushing back against it, because there's really nothing underneath it to say that the governor has that power. But I think at this point, we're all pretty well trained in our social distancing. And certainly we aren't, the governor was pretty blank as far as speaking about municipalities. So we've been holding ourselves to the same standard as restaurants, as far as waiting for them to open up and do that kind of stuff. So I think it's at our discretion. If you guys feel this way, I can run it by the town manager. Certainly I'm always talking to Tommy, the health officer, and he doesn't really have an issue with this as long as we continue to practice what we've been practicing. So like I said, think about it and we'll talk about it 2 weeks from now.
Okay. Any other thoughts from folks? I'm definitely tending towards being as cautious as possible. But I'm, willing to discuss it with the board so we can talk about it at our next meeting, see how we're feeling, see what happens if what happens with the order and what,
Yeah, I mean, I could give you a walking tour of the setup at the next meeting if you'd like. With how the spacing would work or any of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, this is entirely up to you guys at this point. But I just figured I'd put it out there because at some point we're going to have to open up. So we might as well be mentally ready for it as well.
all right. Any other thoughts?
No, thanks.
I'm still waiting for the whole thing to hit New Hampshire. It really hasn't hit here yet, but it's going to.
No.
And if everybody is masked and everybody maintains the social distancing, that reduces the chance of the infection down to around 2%. And that's, if everybody had done that across the country, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now. I've had many years of experience in healthcare and immunology and microbiology, and there's only so much you can do, but I'll have to give it some thought about whether I think it's a good idea. I don't know yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's something to think about, and let's discuss it again. I think I definitely recognize Bonnie's position that it's very difficult for her. And then there's others, you know, myself included, that spend about half my day, you know, talking to a screen. So, so I've adjusted quite well to, you know, the grid in front of me. So, yeah. All right. Well, something to think about. Any other comments? Anything else?
Would you like a move to adjourn? A motion to
Yeah,
adjourn?
it's a very important motion this evening.
I will make the motion to adjourn.
I second.
I'll say, okay.
All right. And I will read the roll. Phil,
Yes.
Marianne,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
and me. Yes. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.